The Sony MDR-E888, the last great Sony earbud. Once again it's summer, and the earbuds and the IEMs are taking over. As mentioned in last year's review of the Sony MDR-E888, flathead earbuds aren't for everyone, as a good bass seal is required, which in some cases is not possible due to anatomical differences in ear shape. So some liberty must be taken with subjective impressions. After the Biocellulose successes of the MDR-R10,
MDR-CD3000
and CD1700, the MDR-E888 was released in 1995. It was Sony's top-of-the-line earbud, which also houses Biocellulose drivers. Since then, Sony has not released a single noteworthy flathead earbud, and as such, it has maintained its romantic status as quite possibly the best earbud Sony has ever made. You can barely tell that these are almost 30 years old, as there are no signs of age in any part of the build. The silicon stems are holding up very well, with no signs of becoming tacky or decomposing. The outer shell is a garish combination of black and chrome, although I'm quite sure this is an artificial chrome on plastic. The strangest part of this bud is its case. Sony likely decided in their wisdom that this, as a statement piece, should also have a statement carry case. Comically printed on the side of the case is the word compact. For reference, the MDR-E888 case is shorter and thinner at the thickest point. If that wasn't confusing enough already, the lid doesn't open as wide, and the cable must be wound manually. And the plug has its own storage compartment that is closed off with a plastic hinge that inevitably gets weaker the more you use it. Of course, I'm nitpicking, but the old style case is just better. The cable is asymmetrical, so the longer right side is supposed to go around the back of your neck. I've never been a fan of this type of cable, but when worn as designed, you can take both buds out and leave them hanging around your neck, which might be a nice feature for some. The MDR-E888 is the best earbud I have heard so far. To be clear, I haven't heard that many earbuds, modern or vintage, maybe around 20 or 30 in total, but this is a clear step up from the MDR-E868 and my Yinyu BK2. If I had to describe the tone, it's very mid-centric. Both bass and upper treble are lacking in volume, but the mids are so clear and detailed and natural. Even the timbre is undeniably superior to even many full-size headphones costing hundreds or thousands of euros. Looking at the frequency response graph, we can clearly see that this copy actually suffers from a channel imbalance. But even so, it still sounds really good. Like most earbuds, there is a strong bass roll-off below 100 Hz, and at normal listening volume, anything below 20 Hz is completely inaudible, so there's going to be some obvious lack of scale and depth in a lot of music. At this point, I think it's worth mentioning that the 20 to 20,000 Hz rule of human hearing has been pretty well and truly debunked. There's plenty of videos and other information out there on the internet, because there are actually many outliers, with some people being able to hear up to 22,000 Hz, for example. And, as proven to me by my JVC HASZ2000, my hearing actually goes down to 8 Hz. For this reason, bass response and performance has always played a huge factor in the way I enjoy music and headphones. In particular, I find that headphones with excellent linearity and performance down to 10 Hz, they just sound bigger than headphones that cannot. And for anyone who's interested, when I was younger, I could only hear up to around 18,000 Hz, but in my current middle age, I can only hear up to around 16,000, which is still enough for most music. I think many people don't appreciate just how low or high their hearing can actually go, because they might not actually have a headphone that is capable of properly producing those frequencies. So, if you're following the video with your MDR-888 plugged in, now is not the best time to do a bass hearing test. As a quick side note, please don't compare my earbud graphs to any others on the internet. The Mini DSP Ears is a really good tool for measuring over-ear headphones on a budget, but anything smaller gets increasingly less reliable. On-ear graphs are incrementally less reliable than over-ears, and flathead earbud graphs are very unreliable. IEM graphs are actually decent, but for some reason they have typically been very difficult to measure and require many reseatings. Anyway, as a workaround for flathead earbuds, I measure them without the silicone ears, replacing them with a simple foam jig that gives a more natural bass seal and extremely consistent results with all buds. So, on my website, my flathead earbud graphs are at the very least comparable to each other. So, getting back on topic, when I listen to music using the MDR-E888, since most of the mids are basically perfect, all I need to do is crank up the bass, and maybe the treble to taste. I would also advise against using thicker foams. Try to use the most open cell foam you can find, and preserve the airiness and detail. If I had to describe the upper mids and treble, it's surprisingly smooth and laid back. Typically, the Biocellulose drivers from Sony have been on the brighter and sharper end of the timbral spectrum, but this is something of an outlier with a very lush, almost thick presentation in stock form. You could think of it as being quite similar to a capable, high-end vintage headphone. Just hit the loudness button and enjoy. Almost all other characteristics of the sound are shared between the 868 and 888. Soundstage and wearing comfort still both far superior to most in-ear monitors, but the 888 doesn't have the same tonal faults as the 868, or a lack of micro detail. And as usual, flathead earbuds were always designed to run perfectly from any source. I found little to no benefit in running these off a desktop amplifier compared to, let's say, a portable source. This kind of earbud is something I would save for home or in the office for summertime. I live in a city, so for the outdoors, IEMs make the most sense, but at home or at work, I personally want to be able to hear when people are at least trying to talk to me and be aware of when something's going on. For this reason, I have never enjoyed using in-ear monitors at home or work. If you're a vintage enthusiast, as long as you've got a good EQ handy, there are few reasons not to get one of these if one pops up in your local classifieds. However, modern earbuds have already reached and exceeded this level a while ago. Of course, in the vintage hobby there are very few exceptions to that statement, but this is also one of those cases where most people wouldn't be able to tell the age of the bud just from hearing it. That's all for now. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.